Welcome back to Air Quality Matters and my take on a paper or report on air quality, ventilation and the built environment. One take in that it's, well, done in one take and tries to summarise for you a scientific perspective on something interesting in, well, usually 10 minutes or less, because who has the time to read all these amazing documents, right? This week, we're looking at a paper that I think gets to the heart of something we all intuitively know, but often fail to act on. It's a scoping review by Duncan, Grassie and a team of researchers from the UK Health Security Agency and Eurovent, titled Impact of Air Quality, including Thermal Conditions, on Educational Buildings, on Health, Wellbeing and Performance. A scoping review is essentially a stock take, right? It gathers up all the existing research in the field to map out what we know, where the evidence is strong and where the gaps are. And the field in question here is our schools, nurseries and universities. Kids spend something like 30% of their waking hours in these buildings, breathing air and in thermal conditions that they have absolutely no control over. So this paper is asking a really fundamental question. What is the collective evidence telling us about how these environments are shaping our children's health, their attendance, and crucially, their ability to learn? So let's get into it. The review organises the impacts into three main buckets, which I think is a really clear way of looking at it: health, absenteeism, and performance. First, on health, this is probably the most established link. The paper confirms what many studies have shown before, frankly. There's a huge body of evidence linking poor indoor air quality, things like VOCs from new carpets, particulate matter from outside traffic, or mould from dampness, to respiratory problems. We're talking about asthma, wheezing, rhinitis, and other infections. This isn't really a surprise, but the review reinforces just how solid that evidence base is. The environment we send our children into every day is directly linked to their respiratory health, and probably a lot more besides. But it's the next two areas where things get really interesting from a policy and, well, practical perspective, I think. It's a simple and logical chain of events. Poor air quality contributes to illness, and sick kids don't go to school. This review pulls together the data that quantifies this effect. One study they cite found that simply increasing classroom ventilation rates up to the minimum required standard, in this case California, could reduce illness-related absences by 3.4%. Now that might not sound like a huge number, but when you scale that up across an entire school district or even a country, it's enormous. It means more time in school, less disruption, and also fewer parents having to take time off work to care for sick children. It's a direct, quantifiable impact. And this leads to the third bucket, which, if you think about it, which is academic performance. This is the real kicker. The review looks at studies that go beyond just whether a child is present in the classroom and asks how well can they actually function and learn while they're there. And the evidence here is compelling. High CO2 levels, which are the classic sign for poor ventilation, are consistently linked to a drop in cognitive performance. One major study concluded that reducing CO2 from 2,100 parts per million down to about 900 parts per million could improve students' performance speeds by 12%. Similarly, thermal comfort is critical here. A key meta-analysis they mention found that decreasing a classroom's temperature from a hot 30 degrees Celsius down to a more optimal 20 degrees would be expected to increase performance on tasks by around 20%. So we're not talking about marginal gains here. We're talking about significant measurable improvements in children's ability to concentrate, process information, perform tasks, all by managing the air they breathe and the temperature of the room that they sit in. Okay, so the problems are clear, but what really makes this review useful is its focus on interventions, the solutions. First, they highlight source control. This is the stuff that often gets overlooked, but is often the most cost effective. Think of the hierarchies of control. It simply means not putting the pollution into the air in the first place, using low VOC emitting paints and furniture, ensuring cars aren't idling outside school gates, using safer cleaning products. It's all the cheapest and simplest first step. The second and most critical intervention is ventilation, and the paper makes a stark point. Across the board, in many countries, our schools are chronically underventilated. They are consistently failing to meet even minimum legal standards. But the good news is that fixing this doesn't always require multi-million-pound HVAC overhauls. The authors stress that even small-scale improvements, operational tweaks and maintenance can make a huge difference, often for a fraction of a school's budget, and the return on investment, as we've seen from above, could be massive. That California study on absenteeism, they estimated the ventilation upgrades could cost about $4 million. But the economic benefit from increased attendance linked to funding and reduced caregiver absence was over $110 million annually. So, to bring this all together, the main takeaway from me from this comprehensive review is the powerful economic case it makes. It reframes spending on our school air quality not as a cost, but as a high return investment. The benefits in reduced healthcare burdens, improved attendance, and enhanced academic performance are not just nice to haves, they are tangible socio-economic gains. The evidence is clear. The solutions are available, and in many cases, they are perfectly affordable. And for me, they target a cohort that aren't in control of the spaces themselves. So we owe this to them. The review concludes that while there are still research gaps, we know more than enough to act. The real challenge, it seems, isn't a scientific one, but one of political and budgetary will. And it leaves me with a pretty stark thought. Failing to provide a healthy indoor environment for our children to learn in isn't a building failure. It's a failure of our fundamental responsibility to them. Thanks very much for listening. This has been this week's One Take. I hope you enjoyed it. These podcasts are not possible without our sponsors, Safe Traces and Imbiot, so thanks a million to them. I'll see you next week.